Hey guys, Mr. America here. So for today's polling opinion video is gonna be a little bit different. So I'm just gonna be directly talking to you guys like this on what I feel is gonna be the best way to go about in version 4.4's banners, because there's frankly, I believe 6 different rerun banners, one Himeko Nova and one Rin Tohsaka into a Gilgamesh, and subsequently they are also gonna be adding the entire Fate collaboration pool as a one giant Fate banner, so you can pretty much just pull for whichever Fate units you want. So I'm just gonna ramble on and you can just see some random videos in the background, right? Alright, so jumping into the very first banner, and that is going to be Himeko Nova herself. Once again, for Himeko Nova specifically, we are going to be getting the early access server for this Wednesday, or rather the early access content for this Wednesday. So stay tuned for in the future. We have a much more in-depth, deeper analysis as to what she's going to be offering. So I'll just be discussing briefly on what she is gonna do based on the live stream so far. So Himeko Nova is gonna be a unit that will make use of her ultimate pretty frequently. So she wants to drive the giant robot as frequently as possible, and also signaling a lot of ties with your traveling companions, namely the Astro Express. So my personal feeling from what I see in the live stream is that Himeko Nova is gonna be one of those units where you can essentially use her to make use of teammates that you previously have not been able to make use of for a while. Right, so for example, if you're going to be going for like a Remembrance flagship, right, an Elation flagship, right, Break, right, DOT, I would assume that a lot of your older things, right, the supports that you pull for, namely the units like, for example, your Welt, right, maybe your Sparxie if you don't really want to use your Archer, RMC, maybe like if you don't want to use RMC anymore, Tribby if you took out Tribby from the Remembrance, Mortonix Blade if you still haven't found like a main DPS of Mortonix Blade. So a lot of these kind of like generalist supporters, or those action value advances that you have not used for a while because you have been using the flagship teams, I feel Himeko is going to be able to offer quite a lot of value for account, particularly if you're going to be missing out on a third team. So for context, for a little bit on my own free-to-play account, I am going to be running a Remembrance flagship for Team 1, as well as the E1 Archer alongside Rin Tohsaka. I'm definitely going to be pulling for Rin Tohsaka as the vertical cost army for Archer. And my third team on my free-to-play account is actually looking a little bit sus, because I don't really have a good enough third DPS. But I do have a couple of units that I could just make use with Himeko Nova based on this current trajectory. So your units like, for example, if I could have an RMC, right, I could have like my E1 Tribby, right, I could maybe get like a Welt, right, my DHPT, or maybe not DHPT, or maybe if I want to redeem like a Huo. So all of these different units that my two first teams have, otherwise they are not going to be using, Himeko Nova can pretty much make use of these other teammates that you cannot utilize. So if I have to give an example, right, if you were to pull for a support to make a older unit more viable, right? You pull a newer support to make an older DPS more viable. Himeko Nova feels like you're pulling for a new DPS to make your older support and sub DPS more viable, which I think is a very interesting concept, because I really haven't seen this in, I guess, Mortonix Blade is somewhat like a sub DPS slash DPS as a whole, and he can pseudo carry the rest of your older units all the way up to the wheelchair, right? So Himeko Nova, I feel she's going to be doing quite a bit of value there. I personally feel if you do not have a need for a third team, so for example, if you're really going to be running Elation, Remembrance, Break, right, you have one flagship team for every single version, I personally don't think that's going to be too much of a value in investing for Himeko Nova, especially if you're someone that already invested in an Elation flagship, right? Because Elation, I'm assuming you have invested quite a bit of cost for a Silver Wolf, for Yao Guang, your Sparxie, right? Maybe you want to go for vertical investments on the E2 Silver Wolf, right, or maybe E1 Evernight. Yeah, you are probably not going to be having a lot of pools left in version 4. So I would just want to pace out my income of Stellar Jades a little bit more and save them up for maybe future version units, because I personally don't think you would need more than a single archetype or a flagship within a single version. Just going about in a pace-by-pace basis between each future versions would, I would say, be a better choice for the free-to-play players, right? So that is pretty much going to be that for Himeko Nova. I'm not really sure what her vertical investments are going to be, because from the wording they said in the trailer, she definitely needs some kind of ties with a trailblazing companion, right? We have an Astro Express crew, so it really depends if her support as well as her sustain is going to be able to fill that room. I mean, technically you can run DHPT, which is going to be an AE Express, so maybe she needs like another 2 brand new supports. I personally feel, this is just purely personal opinions, what I feel is going to happen is that Robin SP is going to be Himeko's after sales, right, which is essentially following the same footsteps as Finon into Cerydra back to back. And the reason why I say this is because I don't think it makes sense for Hoyoverse to upgrade Remembrance flagship immediately following up with a Robin SP, because Remembrance Flagship is doing absolutely incredibly well as of this very moment, right? They are literally either rank 1 or rank 2 best DPS in combination with Elation, and rightfully so because Elation hasn't even gotten their full team. So it just doesn't really feel that it makes sense for them to add a Robin SP just to make Remembrance even stronger, because if they make Remembrance even stronger, then they kind of have to make Elation even stronger than that, which I think the power scale is just going to be a little bit too off balance. So what I think would make more sense is that Robin is going to be Himeko's after sales. So she's going to be a unit that probably doesn't require as many premium team upgrades, maybe following the same full stacks as Finon. So Finon really only just had that Cerydra as a dedicated support, and that's pretty much it. Your third slot, you can run like Spargo, RMC, Bronya, Sunday, doesn't really matter. I feel Himeko probably might follow this full step as well. So for those Himeko main poolers, I personally will be a little bit more conservative and save at least guarantee that one pity in case Robin SP does turn out to be Himeko's support in the future, right? So that's just going to be my personal opinion. I'm not really even sure if Robin SP is going to be a support or sustain, but I feel she probably will have some ties with Himeko, because just because she's like Remembrance doesn't mean that she has to go with a Remembrance team, right? Look at Aglia, right? They have no ties with casters whatsoever, right? So those are going to be my personal thoughts on Himeko's overall value. Going into Rin Tohsaka, I'm just going to talk about the fake collab real quick. Whether or not Rin Tohsaka and Gilgamesh is going to be having more value on your account, it really depends if you're going to be playing Saber more or Archer more, right? I'm not saying which unit is better as of right now, like maybe Archer is stronger than Saber, but if you're someone that really likes playing Saber, I don't think you should be forcing yourself to like skip Gilgamesh because like Saber is mid, right? If you want to make your DPS stronger, and if Gilgamesh really does turn out to work really well with Saber, just like how in the teaser they showcased Rin to work really well with Archer, then as a Saber enjoyer, you should be pulling for Gilgamesh, right? So for example, I like playing Fei Xiao, alright, and I don't really care if Fei Xiao is not going to be a tier 0 DPS. I would want to pull 4 units that can make my Fei Xiao stronger, even if that means that I'm going to be investing more cost for a unit that might not be having a similar performance as the current like fastest current team, which is either Elation or Remembrance, right? So if you like playing Saber, and if Gilgamesh is going to be really good for Saber, I would just go for it, right? Don't let meta dictate what you're going to be playing for, especially in a PvE gacha. On the other hand, for Rin Tohsaka, this is going to be most likely my personal choice for my free-to-play account, because I don't have a Saber and I have a E1 Archer. So if Rin is going to be making my Archer to the next level, especially because I desperately need my Archer team to become a lot stronger than what he currently is, I would say Rin is going to be having a lot of value for my free-to-play account. So it's most likely going to be E1 Archer, Rin, Spargo. The last slot, either Gallagher or DHPT, kind of depends on whether or not my team with Himeko Nova is going to need Gallagher or DHPT a little bit more, right? Which this is gonna be the one with the Fate collaboration 200 pulls for the free Lycon. I'm just gonna briefly talk about this real quick. Because of the fact that you're able to get yourself a brand new free Archer S1 or Gilgamesh S1 by pulling 200 limited pulls during the 4.4 banners, which means it does not include your Cyrene and Final, I think I am gonna be making a decision of skipping Cyrene and purely just committing that 200 pulls so that I can get a Archer S1 upgrade, as well as guaranteeing myself that E0 S1 Rin if she needs E0 S1. Not sure if she needs the islands, we'll check it out in the future, but definitely more than enough to prepare to spend those 200 limited pools during 4.4. So if I do end up getting Rin at like an E0 S1, maybe she doesn't need an E1, the most logical choice for me as my free-to-play account is to pull for Himeko Nova, right? So I am pretty much more or less settled on this decision. I'll get Rin first, see how many pulls that's going to take, and then I'll just spend the remaining of my pulls to see how far that's going to get me for Himeko Nova, which is very similar to what final mains have experienced back in version 4.3, or rather, yeah, 3.4, where you pull for Finon, right? Maybe you want to pull for E2, right? Then you get yourself the free S1 Archer. Then from there, you can kind of decide if you want to commit for a E1 Archer to take it to the next level, right? So that is pretty much going to be my thought process. Because of these 200 pulls, I am going to be skipping on the E2 side reading, right? Okay, now with all of those 3 banners being established, we're just going to jump straight into the rerun banners right now. For the rerun banners, it's going to be Sparxie, DHPT, as well as Evernight for the first half. Keep in mind for the banner timing, your non-rerun banners, so it's going to be Himeko into Fate, it's only a 10 days gap, but Himeko herself will be lasting the entire version of 4.4. So it is a 6-week banner for Himeko. Okay, I'm not really sure it's 6 weeks, but she will essentially last all the way until the 25th of August. Right? Then the Fate banner is gonna be 10 days after Himeko, but they're gonna be lasting long term, which is exactly the same like what the Fate banners have been achieving. Whereas for the Rerun banners, it is still gonna be on a 3-week to 3-week rotation. So the first 3 is gonna be your Sparxie, DHPT, and Evernight, and after this banner rotates away, it is going to be the next Rerun, which is gonna be Cerydra, Anaxa, as well as Aventurine. I would say for this particular Rerun, it is quite straightforward. For Phylon mains, you definitely want to pick up at least one copy of Cerydra if you still do not have Cerydra. So maybe last time you put for an E2 Phylon and you skip Cerydra, now it's time to pick up your Cerydra, right? And for the other players, if you really want to play Phylon like from scratch, you technically can invest like, what, 6 costs, right? 4 costs into E2 as on Phylon, 2 costs potentially into a E1 Cerydra, and you're going to be getting this 6 cost Phylon team right off the get-go, which might not be the fastest clearing team period. Cost-wise, you still need to get a little bit more vertical investments for gears, for supports, all that kind of stuff. But it is a very satisfying team to play with E2 as on Phylon, especially because the E1 Cerydra gives you a massive defense ignore multiplier, which is going to be quite nice, right? So it really depends if you do want to try Phylon for yourself. If you do not want to care about Phylon that much, then I don't think Cerydra is going to be enticing you whatsoever, right? Then for the other units for Evernight over here, I would say for Evernight specifically, if you're going to be a Remembrance main, I don't think it's gonna be too big of a question whether or not you should have Evernight. My personal opinion is, like I mentioned at the start, Robin SP is potentially, I feel Robin SP is probably going to end up being a Himeko Nova after sale, so it would not impact your Remembrance team. If I'm wrong, then you can just kind of wait and see what Robin SP's trip is going to be in the future when they talk more about her kids, right? So with that being established, if Remembrance team is still going to be unchanged, I would definitely consider getting myself an Evernight if you do not have Evernight for Casterus, or maybe getting yourself an E1 into E2 Evernight for really strong damage increase, because her damage, especially at E2, is going to be very strong, especially even on like a main DPS angle, right? DHPT, I personally wouldn't really spend too much pools for him. I think an E0 Ezreal is completely functionable. If you want to get him a little bit more comfort with Modern Display, I would get an S1 for the health regen. If you want to just go for raw damage, the skill point into Respan is going to be E1, followed by a much higher attack frequency as well as damage at E2. So it depends if you really want him. I personally don't really want to commit that many costs. So for my personal free-to-play account, as long as I can still sustain with my E0 Ezreal DHPT, I'm going to be okay. So if I'm going to be going for more cost upgrades to upgrade my overall team's damage output, I will not look into a sustain first. I will first look into my either DPS or support, right? So that's going to be that. And then lastly, for Sparxie, for this one, I honestly don't really think there's going to be too big of a contention as to what her value is going to be like. If you do not like Elation, just skip. But even if you do like Elation, especially if you play Silver Wolf, right? I was having this discussion with my chat previously, I think like 2 or 3 days back, on Sparxie's value in a Silver Wolf team. I can only describe her value as a little bit awkward, because Silver Wolf, when you want to talk about the most cost-effective way of upgrading a Silver Wolf team, you would actually commit the 2 costs for an E2 Silver Wolf first before going for an E0 Sparxie. So getting the E2 Silver Wolf into Yao Guang as well as EMC is going to give you a better result compared to the E0 Silver Wolf into a Yao Guang and Sparxie. Alright, so I feel if you're someone that is trying to cost max, I would rather spend those Sparxie costs for Silver Wolf or whichever main DPS are going to be playing on Elation like Evernight instead first before investing into Sparxie. I would then only consider investing into Sparxie if you already have, let's just say in this case, the priority islands that's going to be E2 Silver Wolf, right? You already got those 2 costs and you want to make her even stronger, then I would consider Sparxie a little bit more over there. But also keep in mind, we are lacking ourselves the Elation Sustain. I'm not too sure if Aventurine is going to be our Elation Sustain, but we do need to have another cost for Aventurine, so manage your pools wisely, especially for Elation mates, right? I personally think that I added this Sparxie over here because they have a skin, right? So that's pretty much it. So that is going to be the first half. Second half reruns, I already talked about Cerydra. For Anaxa, I don't really think his vertical investment is going to be too good. Anaxa at E0 is going to be perfectly viable. If you want to give him vertical upgrades, you can either go for a Cerydra E1 or a E2 Cyrene to make a Anaxa even stronger. So for Anaxa mains, I would commit those 2 costs into like Cyrene upgrades instead. Then if you're trying to play Anaxa completely from scratch, you definitely need Cyrene to give him the action very advanced, as well as having a lot more skills on top of having a Cerydra, right? So if you are going to be from that department, getting Cyrene, getting Cerydra into Anaxa is definitely going to be a viable enough team, but probably not going to be the strongest meta-wise, right? Then for Aventurine, I don't think anyone's using him, so Yeah, just skip, right? We're gonna be getting Aventurine SP in the future. I think that's pretty much the reason why they're rerunning him, so that's pretty much it, right? So that is gonna be my overall pooling opinions for all of the reruns as well as the radar banners. To kind of summarize everything real quick, Himeko Nova, I personally feel her highest value would be if you're a player without a third team. So you skip a lot of like flagships, and you cannot really make a very strong third team, as well as the fact that if you were to pull Himeko, she can make use of teammates on your roster that you have not used for a while because you only play mainly flagship teams. So, key example, you pulled for Remembrance, you pulled for Break, you skipped Elation because you didn't want to play Elation, and you want to build yourself a version 4 team, and you do not have a very strong version 2 or version 3 team, then I think Himeko is going to be having quite a lot of value, which is exactly what my personal free-to-play account is going to be experiencing. Then on top of all the 200 pulls, I am most likely going to be putting for Himeko myself on the free-to-play account, right? Then for the fake banner units, it really depends which one you personally like. So going for your favoritism, right? If you want to play Archer more, pull Rin. If you want to play Saber, pull Gilgamesh. I'm not too sure which one is going to be super strong, but based on what I see in the teaser, they are working together, especially with the joint attack, so that's pretty much it. Then for the rerun banners, it really depends. The only one having a lot of value out of all the reruns, I would say it's going to be Cerydra if you're going to be a final main or in the next main, right? For Evernight, for Remembrance mains, then everything else is kind of just like right? A little bit more questionable, right? Sparxie is somewhere in the middle ground, then these two is going to be Anaxa, or rather Cerydra and Evernight for Remembrance or final and Anaxa, Sparxie, and the rest is just going to be around here, right? So with that, we're going to come to the very quick discussion of my pooling opinions on version 4.4. Let me know what you guys think in the thoughts and comments down below. I'm going to be going for AX the time right now is like almost 6 AM. I have not slept, so join YouTube. All the best for gacha pools, and I'll see you guys next time.